Good morning. As we start to wrap up Module 2, and don't stress, you still have today and tomorrow if you need to finish your postings. I just wanted to do a quick summation of some of the things that I've been reading as I'm going through. First off, thank you so much. The participation in this module has been fantastic. Some folks got in a little late, so I'm encouraging you, remember, to try to get in by that first Wednesday of the module so that we can get those conversations going. But I think things picked up a lot this time in the second week, and perhaps it was just school, letting out for those of you who've been working in schools and doing some substitute teaching or long-term positions to help out the school system and get your foot in the door. So maybe that's what it was too, that everything kind of kicked up after that because our brains became a little more free. So I wanted to just kind of go through some of these things because I was super impressed with a lot of the deep discussion. So the discussion is really starting to fill out where people are not backing down from things that they disagree with. They're adding additional resources to posts. Those are the kinds of things we want, because every time we can read something just a little bit different or see a perspective from a different way, that helps us to grow as people and as educators. So let's just start off with those socioeconomic questions. You had choices of questions, but I think some of the biggest themes that came out of this, and I'm thinking back to Jamie, Garrett, and Marcus were having a conversation overall just about what the difference is, and how we're looking at what people bring to the table, and how we're looking at how images are created based on power and wealth. Because we have to admit the socioeconomic status does bring something with that. If I don't have to worry about my hierarchy of needs because I have food, because I have shelter, because mom and dad have jobs, because I have a stable household, that enables me to open up and learn better because I don't have all of the additional stresses of the world. So the key there is just that the difference makes a difference, no matter what the difference is. And I really appreciated that those three are hashing that out in the middle of their discussion. What was very interesting about these posts for me is that the post really shows your upbringing. The way we respond to this particular post shows what we believe our future can be about. A lot of you are literally quoting the American dream as you're posting, because that's what we've been raised to believe, that if you work hard enough, you can get out of any situation that you're in and you can move forward in life. And a lot of you are posting that because that's been what we've been taught our entire lives. So I want to challenge you in that American dream. And there's a lot more learning to do and a lot of other coursework and things that you can take to kind of continue to dig into this. But the American dream is only attainable to a certain level based on where you've begun and the barriers that have been placed in front of you. So I just want you to let that soak in and continue to consider that. What barriers are being placed in front of my students that are inhibiting them from this? If I work hard, I can do this. If I came out of poverty and I work hard, I can get to whatever that next piece is. So when I was growing up in Western PA, I was a coal miner's daughter. And so my dad was a Vietnam veteran, and we lived in a small steel town, coal town also. And whenever he came back from the war, he went into the coal mines like most of the men do. And I remember so many times he would be laid off, the coal mine would close, different things would happen. And we would be standing in the processed cheese lines. In fact, I met Walter Mondale while standing in a processed cheese line. So anyways, the point being is, like, my whole life was built around this work hard and you can achieve, work hard and you can achieve. And that worked for me. But I also have other things that are working for me. Just looking at my intersections, I'm a white woman, correct? So that wasn't a barrier that was placed in front of me. I'm an English speaker. That wasn't a barrier that was placed in front of me. I had two working parents at home who provided a home for me. So that wasn't a barrier that was placed in front of me. Although my dad was an alcoholic, he was a functioning alcoholic. So that, although could have created a barrier, did not create a barrier that was placed in front of me because of the rest of my family support unit that was around. So be considerate when you're thinking about the difference that makes a difference, and consider those barriers as you're looking at something like socioeconomic status, which seems like a barrier that is, I don't want to say by choice, but a barrier that can be fought through. Consider what other barriers are there tripping people up as they're trying to fight through that particular one. Sandra made a very good point, which is a barrier also, and can just cause unneeded stress for students, is the cost of being in good health. And there was a conversation going on there, I believe, with Kara about just access to good food, access to healthcare, access to gyms, that those things that middle class folks consider to be important, or mid and upper class people consider to be important, can be more attainable to them if there's money. If there's money, it's just more attainable. And Alex brought up a point. He was responding to someone's post just about neighborhoods and what that looks like in schools. And I totally understand where this idea is coming from, that, if you have an affluent neighborhood, they're all going to go to an affluent school. And if you have a poor neighborhood, they're all going to go to a poor school. Just in Carroll County alone, there is one particular school that has the highest socioeconomic students and the lowest all in the same building. And at times that has caused a lot of issues. And we, as a county, have tried to help students to better understand themselves and their power and privilege as they work through what their parents have. So, for example, there's a couple. I'm going to give you one example of one particular school, William Winchester Elementary School, who has brand new homes that are built across from the Safeway Plaza on 140 near McDaniel College. That's why I'm thinking about this one in particular for you all. And there are people who live in that neighborhood who have been NFL football players and who are doctors and private trainers and those sorts of things. Yet at William Winchester, that neighborhood that feeds into William Winchester also has our highest level Hispanic population of any elementary school, simply because also within walking distance of William Winchester is a very low economic status neighborhood, and the students walk to get to school. So it's been a problem, especially as we've gone through COVID, in looking at the disparities between how we are really able to service and serve those students who come from the walking neighborhoods, the local walking neighborhoods, as opposed to the ones who are bussed in. So, moving along in my notes. Let's take a look at chapter 4 to 5 PowerPoint. And as we went through this one, this was about our LGBTQIA communities. And what I love is that just a couple of comments that came out of this one, because we need to know that this is a hot button topic for many families and for many people, and we are not going to be able to change everybody's view. This is probably a thing that drives me the most nuts, is that I can't just help people to understand why it's important or why we should care, why we should love. But so many of you brought up the same thing, that you can't expect everyone to accept, but you can expect kindness. You can expect to teach civility, because that is part of our job, is teaching civility. And Walter mentioned that students remember teachers for their entire lives. And that's very important, because everybody was talking sort of about allyship and what we are going to do within our classrooms to make sure that our students feel that they're allies. And that's very important, because if you have one teacher who makes it seem like you are wrong, or makes it seem like there's maybe not answering your questions, which someone else brought up about being careful to answer questions and not disregard what students are questioning or thinking about, but to listen and say thank you. That's a really good point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. That even that little statement would help a student to recognize their worth in a conversation. But Walter's correct that people remember their teachers forever. I know that you can probably dig back and remember some of your elementary school teachers, good and bad, who made an impact on your life. So it's important for us to become that role model, to become that person. And as we look at that final post, which is intersections of race and social class, I thought some of the really interesting things that came out of this is, for instance, Hunter was in a conversation with Marcus, and he mentioned that white isn't a pattern that I typically notice. And that's because we are able to look at things through our lens. And as a dominant culture, remember intersections, right? That intersection of being white allows you the power and that opportunity to not pay attention to certain things. So we need to be very aware of what our intersections are, because they're impacting the lens through which we are watching the world take place in front of us. So we may not see injustice, and we may not see a need or disparity if we are looking at it through a particular dominant lens. It gives you a power and privilege to not do that. Julie A. mentioned that she never learned how to discuss difficult topics in school. And I wanted to say, why? Because teachers, right? Teachers were uncomfortable. So they never brought that up. And if it ever did come up, I'm sure that there was some disciplinary procedure or somebody saying, we're not talking about that here. And that's why you're all here, because that's not good enough. That is not even fair to students if we don't allow them the opportunity to discuss difficult topics and learn about them in a safe place. And of course, then Miriam followed up saying that we are educating people, not just students, but we are educating students to be people as well. So we are educating them in civility again, in life processes, and things that they may not get at home. And again, going back to that whole idea that we may not change people's views, but the best that we can do is expose people to something just a little bit different, because eventually these kids will get older and they will move out of their homes and they will go on to a college or a career or something that's outside of that home front that they have known their entire lives. And they are going to need to learn how to interact with multiple cultures. And some of you brought this up, especially those of you who have been in the military or currently in the military, that the most important thing you can do is to look around you and work with the people that are around you effectively. And that doesn't mean that everybody that you're with you're going to love and it's going to be all perfection all the time. But what it means is that you have those skills to put aside things that may cause rifts and work together for whatever that greater good is that you are involved with at that moment. All right, so there was no deliverable for this module, but we are going to be heading into module 3. And hopefully I will see you all for our Zoom class. I will post up that link. I will let you know that I'm traveling to Florida later today, so I will be off the grid for the remainder of today and tomorrow. But then, of course, I will see you on Monday during our Zoom class. But I'll make sure everything's up in the announcements for you, just so that we're prepared. But Module 3 is open to you at this point. And Module 3 is where you need to post your cultural and historical video and reflection as you finish that up. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. Thank you.